Welcome to episode 28 of the Hunt Backcountry podcast, presented by Exo Mountain Gear. Jeremy Ato, you're this week's swag giveaway winner. Thanks for leaving us a review on iTunes. Shoot us an email with your address and we'll get something headed your way. Listeners, if you want to enter these weekly giveaways, it's simple. Just leave us a review on iTunes or email us at podcast@exomountaingear.com with your questions or feedback. Alright, in this week's episode, we're speaking with John Abernathy. If you've seen the recent Elk 101 film, Wyoming, you've seen John's work. If you haven't caught that film, be sure to check it out. It's absolutely phenomenal. If you love to hunt elk, this will do it. It'll surely get you fired up and ready for season. Anyway, go to Elk 101, check out Wyoming. That's John's work. Today we're speaking with John not only about how to increase the quality of content that you're producing if you're already in the photo or video space, but specifically, even for guys who aren't into photos and videos for production work, who just want to capture their own hunts and want to make better quality memories that they can have to share with friends and family, we want to get some good quality tips for those guys too. So we talk about, again, tips and tactics. We get into a bit of photo, video gear, kind of cover the gamut. If you want to capture your hunts, whether that be for public sharing or just to capture your own memories, you're going to get something out of this episode. Hope you enjoy it. Leave us your questions, comments, feedback at podcast@exomountaingear.com. Also, go check out the show notes, exomountaingear.com/28. There we'll go ahead and link to some of John's work as well. Alright, hope you enjoy this one.
The Hunt Backcountry podcast is proudly brought to you by Exo Mountain Gear, makers of ultralight, ultra-tough packs that are designed to do what you love most, hunt the backcountry. Exo packs are designed for efficiency, simplicity, and durability that's backed by a lifetime warranty. To learn more about Exo Mountain Gear, please visit www.exomountaingear.com.
All right, well, John, welcome to the show, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Good. And Steve, you're on the line. We were just kind of talking before we started recording that you know all of John's dirty secrets. So I was maybe going to ask John about an introduction and background, but maybe you should, maybe we should have Steve do it and get to the really good stuff first.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Gosh, I'm trying to think of John. I'm sure we met through Lenny and DR, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So we kind of met John right when we very first started Pure Elevation Productions. You know, Lenny and I were getting that going, and John was. I believe we went on a wolf hunt. Just me, you, and Lenny, and kind of filmed it. And then John just kind of became the camera guru editor for us, and. We worked together for quite a few years and still do projects here and there. John helped us do a couple of our Exo Mountain Gear videos, that the main one, the Explorer one that you see on the homepage. And so he's just been a great resource for us on pretty much anything cameras and filming.
So, John, were you just getting into the video stuff back, 4 or 5 years ago, or maybe a little bit longer when the Pure Elevation stuff was just getting going? Were you just cutting your teeth then as well?
Yeah, pretty much as far as cutting teeth in the filming hunts goes, I had, I've been filming a lot of different things for a while. I started with snowboard videos and action stuff, a little younger. And then as my hobbies kind of went forefront into, more into hunting, then I started packing the camera on the hunts. And yeah, I think it was maybe like a year before I met Steve. I packed a camera on my first hunt, or packed my first camera on an elk hunt, and then right after that, it just went boom boom, happened quick. I met Steve and Lenny, and then next thing you know, we were going for it.
Yeah. So this is diving into a whole different topic right away, but something that fascinates me about filming hunting is it's just so. It's got to be just so difficult because there's so many variables. Like, I'm sure there aren't a lot of things. Like, you have weather and all that, which, you mentioned snowboarding. You have weather and those factors there. But with hunting, you clearly have animals that you have absolutely zero control. You can try and predict, but things always go crazy. Was it a huge learning curve when you started trying to film hunts coming from your background of filming other aspects?
Well, as far as dealing with animals in hunting situations, it wasn't like a huge learning curve. Because, if you come from a hunting background already, you kind of know what movement you can get away with animals, and, how well you're hidden, and all those kind of details. But the part that it was the learning curve was packing, 20 pounds of gear and odd sized tripods, and, trying to take gear into the backcountry, or, even on a day hunt, was just awkward. You have to pack, it's just too much stuff to pack, basically.
Yeah.
And so you'd always be taking, in fact, Steve will tell you lots of good stories about how I'd be packing all sorts of camera gear, and Steve would be like, seriously? Trying to get stuff ready, get stuff put together before we start hiking. And Steve's just standing there staring at me like, whoa. It was a bit overkill to start off with, for sure. And it was a process. I think getting started, cutting your teeth is really just a process of figuring out, just like, backcountry hunting, bivvy hunting and all that kind of stuff, what you need and what you can leave at home, basically.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we will certainly dive into that in terms of the gear. But before we do, let's kind of keep rolling with some more background and kind of introduce the listeners to some of your work that they would recognize. So, for those who don't know the name, I'm sure that there's work out there for sure that you've done that our listeners would know. They just didn't know that you were behind the camera. So what are some of the projects or shows or things of that nature that you've had the opportunity to work on in the hunting industry?
I've stayed fairly low key, but I've had a chance to work with. I think one of my first editing projects was with Blacks Creek TV. That was quite a while ago, actually. Blacks Creek makes packs here in Idaho, and they had shot a bunch of TV shows or shot a bunch of episodes for their TV show, and they had me edit most of the shows. So that was like my first kind of project. And then from there, it was just like lots of little things. I think after that, I got tied in with Steve, and we started, filming all of our pure elevation videos and all of our adventures. I mean, anything if we went down and we did like Bodecast at the Bird and we filmed, that was a pretty popular video that we shot together. And, oh man, what else? I don't know. I don't feel like I've done like a lot.
Yeah.
I've done a few here and there, and to be honest with you, I've stayed fairly low key. I haven't chased, the high profile filming job just, as of yet.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Wyoming stuff. That was pretty recent. What can you tell us about that?
Oh yeah. So the most recent project I did was with Corey Jacobson and Elk 101 over in Wyoming. And that was, I think, to be honest with you, it's kind of like that was my first opportunity to go over on like a full-fledged, everything covered kind of filming trip, to film a hunt. It really was my first full-on hunt, besides packing the camera on our own hunts or for pure elevation. So, it was awesome. It was kind of like the dream job. I was only over there for 4 days, so time flies. And it was a real eye opener with Corey, because, I've hunted with Steve and, and Jason and Lenny and all those guys, and those guys, they move fast. Like if you're packing an extra 5-pound camera, you are going to die by the end of the day chasing those guys around the hills. I mean, they move so fast, and it's just constant, and their energy level is insane. So I was going over with Corey, and not that Corey's an old guy or anything, but he's a little older. He looks like he's pretty in shape, and I actually felt like I was in pretty good shape. And so I thought I was going to be doing okay. And oh my gosh, it was the same thing over and over again. Any backcountry hunter camera guy, who's done this before, knows exactly what I'm talking about. If you're chasing behind some stud in the woods, it is just a nightmare trying to keep up with them. You're constantly trying to adjust your camera gear so it's not awkward as they go charging up this hill. Yeah. And it was the same thing. It was the exact same thing. I spent 4 days trying to keep up with Corey. And, packing, and with that, I was packing a big old, not a big old camcorder, but he had a fairly full size camcorder, that I was packing. I actually used his camera for the shoot.
Yeah. The film turned out awesome. It came out, I guess, a little over a month ago or so now. And if you listeners haven't seen it, go over to elk101.com and hit the video section and look for the Wyoming Film. It's not only shot really well. You did a great job behind the camera, John, but it's awesome. Just hunting encounter, and it's a cool story for sure. So what,
John, you did the shooting and editing on that, correct?
Yes, yeah, I shot and edited that.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah, I did shoot and edit that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what did you, from a hunting perspective, I mean, because you're a hunter too, what do you learn when you are filming somebody like Corey, and do you even have time to process any of that? Or are you just so focused and consumed with the filming process, or were there, tips or tricks or anything you picked up from hunting with Corey?
Well, I'll say this, like when you're chasing someone through the woods and you're a hunter yourself, I mean, so it's kind of works both ways. Being a hunter, like I understand the hunting side of it. So when we get in on elk, we got elk coming in, that kind of stuff. Like I'm totally comfortable, totally confident that I'm not going to get picked off by the elk. He's not going to see me. I feel confident on the hunting side. That being said, it's hard to keep yourself out of the hunt and focused on the camera.
Yeah.
When you got bulls coming in screaming and, Corey's moving around trying to get set up, next thing I know, I'm like wishing I had a mouth reed in my mouth so I could cow call this bull to stop him right where I want him, instead of being focused behind the camera. So it's tough. Like that's probably the hardest part, is keeping myself out of the hunt and focused on the camera. During the slow times, when we're sitting around or hiking, yeah, it's super easy to get, fixated on the camera and just, you're just seeing amazing shots. I mean, you're in the backcountry. Everything looks amazing back there. So,
right.
It's so easy to get fixated once you're in the slow times. But man, once the action starts rolling, the bulls start bugling, elk start moving, it's tough to get out of hunt mode and make sure you stay in cameraman mode.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way, but now that you're describing it, I could totally see how that would be difficult, because you're probably thinking to Corey, oh, move that, or like you said, want to have him the call in your mouth. And
yeah, it's actually kind of funny if you watch that Wyoming video, when that bull comes in, you'll have to kind of turn the audio up, but right before you see that bull, I'm over the top, over Corey's shoulder in this shot, but I actually see the bull first, and actually I saw the bull even before that too, and saw which way it was moving. I saw a flash through the trees. So instead of looking through the camera viewfinder, making sure I'm on Corey, I actually spotted the bull the first time, and then we changed positions. And then I actually spotted the bull again right before he comes out. And you actually see me reach forward to tap Corey on the shoulder to tell him where the bull's at. And that's just my hunting side. Just like I actually picked up on the bulls probably 2 or 3 times before Dirk or Corey saw them. And yes, that's just the hunting side. And I don't think it's a good thing. I mean, it was a good thing because I was able to tell them that they kind of gave him, I kind of, caught where the elk was moving to and gave them the heads up. So they were on point. But at the same time, you got to kind of be focused on the camera a little bit more. And that's just the downside to being a hunter when you're in those situations, even though you got a camera in your hands.
Yeah. So looking back at that project now, now that it's out and you did all the filming and a bunch of the editing, what lessons did you learn doing that project from a filming perspective?
Yeah, I'll say this was probably the hardest part of this project for me. Was I was only over there for 4 days. So I had 4 days to do this. And unfortunately, we didn't kill a bull until the morning. I had to leave that afternoon. Like I had to leave by that afternoon, and we killed a bull that morning. So we spent, the first 3 days of the hunt, 3.5 days of the hunt, going crazy, getting into bull after bull. And actually, if you watch the film, you'll get to see kind of how it went down. But I mean, we blew it like 4 times in a row, like right out of the gates. Like we should have killed bulls like within 24 hours. I think you'll see it in the film, but within 24 hours, we should have killed 4 bulls, and we muffed it. And so it got into this kind of this pace, and Corey, he pushes hard, like just an amazing hunter. Like I learned so much for as far as hunting goes, that sometimes I kind of forgot about the camera a little bit because it was just amazing, hunting behind this guy. But he pushes hard. After you make a mistake, there's none of this sit around, kind of stuff. It's like, next bull, let's go, and just push, push, push. So the hard part about this film is there's not like a ton of really cool B-roll. Like, I'm a big B-roll guy. You can ask Steve that. I love to take my time, set the camera down, shoot a time lapse, do all this kind of fancy camera stuff. And there was no time to do that because we were literally hiking like crazy. And I know Corey's talked about this before, but there was one day we did 14 miles. I've never done 14 miles before in my life, especially not packing a camera.
Yeah.
And I was dead. Like, I was at the end of the day, I was like so nauseated and just beat up. I had to go straight to bed. I couldn't even eat dinner. Like, it just beat me up physically. So, with probably like, that was like one of my biggest struggles, besides staying out of the hunt, was there's just like no time to film B-roll and to like really show the story, and we put together a really good story out of it. But as far as like filming interviews and some of the other stuff that maybe the viewer would have liked a little bit more, there was like no time because it was just go, 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 go. And there was no downtime. Like, we didn't get a chance to kill a bull and then sit around and kind of film a bunch of really cool B-roll stuff until like the absolute last second, right before I had to go peeling out of there, heading home.
Yeah. So before we dive into the gear and get maybe on the real technical side for our listeners who are more familiar with, that type of thing, photo, video gear, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that all of us can do to improve the way we capture our hunts. And I say that, even speaking again selfishly for myself, I'm not a film guy, not a video guy. I have no desire personally to film hunts, but I love capturing memories. And so whether that be photos, whether that be short clips, I take myself for my own kind of private deal, what have you. Let's talk about some of the basic kind of like shot composition or the things that any listener listening to this right now can do to improve the way that they capture the memory of their hunts, regardless of what type of gear they're using. So what are some of the things that come to mind when I say that?
Yeah. Like, even when I'm not filming a big project like Corey's, I'm always packing a camera with me on, and I head out solo quite a bit. I actually solo hunt quite a bit, especially in the late mule deer season, just kind of head out solo. And I've actually even gone out elk hunting solo quite a few times as well. And I can't leave camera gear at home. You can ask Steve. I always bring the kitchen sink, as far as camera gear when it goes to, anytime I'm stepping out in the woods. And it's just cause I always want to have that right accessory that will allow me to, get the right shot. But with shot composition, just like the little tips, the first thing I would probably say is tripods. Like, tripods are a must. And that's big when you're doing solo hunts. Like, I've actually gotten some really cool footage, and like, you can see some of it in like the EXO video, pack video. I got some really cool shots just by having a tripod. And I was all by myself, and you can't necessarily tell that. It may look like someone else filmed it, but a lot of the stuff you see me film is all solo film. So tripods are huge. You can do so much of them. You can use them as a stabilizer and mount your camera on them and kind of hand hold that thing like a selfie stick. Steve does that all the time. I actually learned that probably from Steve, most likely.
Steve's all about the selfies.
Steve's all about
selfies. I take them 10 times a day.
He has a whole nother Instagram account and Facebook account that most people don't know about. That's pretty much just Steve selfies.
All selfies.
Yeah.
Steve he's the hunter selfie king. That's for sure. Oh, yeah. But anyway, so tripods are huge, and like Steve, sells some really nice tripods, and he's shown me some really nice tripods. And I'm kind of a low budget kind of guy. I just can't drop $300 on a tripod, which just sounds funny being a camera guy myself. But, when I go out in the woods, actually my favorite little tripod was like this little 48-inch tall, oh, what was it? Now I can't even think of what it was called. The thing weighs a pound. It's like an aluminum tripod. You know, any guys with big spotting scopes would just shake their head at me. But as far as camera goes, this thing compacted down to like, 14 inches and weighed 1 pound, I think is what it was. And actually I just started packing that last couple of years and I loved that thing. It was perfect. But anyways, I spent way too much time talking about tripods. But
no, that's a good point though, because so many, again, just thinking of guys who aren't into filming it for, public consumption, but there's so many bad like trophy photos. And so if nothing else, especially if you're hunting solo, if you want, if you have a successful hunt and want to capture your own hunt for your own sake, just whether that's with photos. I've been there where you're trying to find like the right rock or the right stump or the right log or whatever to set your camera on, and it's never level and it's not pointing, it's pointing up or down or that's a good point to, just to have something small.
Yeah, no, tripods are huge. They're huge. Yeah. I've had a couple of successful hunts and I was by myself or, this last one, I got a mule deer and I had my son with me and so I was able to get a picture with my son, and I just always have a tripod with me, no matter how far back in I'm going. And, I've tried those, little, gripper arm, the gorilla pods.
Yeah.
And they're great, but it seems like they never work out. And when you kill a, 700-pound bull or whatever it is, you're not just going to throw that thing around wherever you want to get your picture. So tripods are I just pack something. I don't care how good of a tripod it is. Obviously your better tripods are going to do better for spotting scopes and video. But if anything, if you're just going and the only thing you want is to get a good kill shot or, a good friend shot, so you guys can both be behind the animal. If you guys knock something down, pack a cheap, lightweight tripod, something back there.
Yeah. Cool. So what else comes to mind, whether that be shot composition or just understanding a little bit more about light, kind of some of those low-hanging fruit tips to improve photo or video for all of our listeners?
Yeah. So, kind of the first thing, as far as shot composition goes is angles. A lot of times I see with guys first starting out, and this is probably geared more towards those guys that are, wanting to make their production just look a little better, even if it's for home use. They would just want it to look a little more professional. Change the angles, high, low angles, get creative with the angle of the camera. Just understand, if you're filming a person, you don't want to film down below them because you film up their nostrils. Or if you're holding the camera up in front of your face doing a selfie style film, just make sure you have the camera at like eye level. I see a lot of guys will like look down at the camera. It just looks weird. Like you'll see them film up their nostrils and, other things like that. Just change the angle of the camera, like get creative. Like some of the best stuff I've seen comes from guys like Steve. He just gets creative with the camera. I've learned, it's kind of funny, but I've learned a lot from hunting with him and seeing some of the stuff he films. He sets his camera on the ground and then picks his pack up, over the top of it. Stuff I never even thought about doing. So, changing angles, all that kind of stuff just makes it really interesting. It makes like the little details really interesting. And this is obviously geared more towards the guys who are wanting to kind of up their production quality. The other thing I see, and this that I've learned quite a bit, is like hunter interviews. Like when guys are talking about what's going on, like keep them brief. I'm one guy who will ramble pretty good, and when you get me talking about the bull that just got away, I could all of a sudden kill like 3-4 minutes. And, and those are only interesting so far. So if you're looking to kind of up your production level, try to keep your hunter interviews short and concise. Because a lot of guys will ramble on them. That's another thing.
Yeah. While we're on that topic, is there anything you do to sort of coach guys on that, or is there anything you do to get away from sort of the standard script? I guess because so many hunting videos, it's like it's so much of the same type when it comes to the interview portion and like the script of what went down. It's just so similar.
Yeah.
You can't change the story, but how do you make that more interesting?
Yeah, the whisper interviews kind of, they kind of kill me. You know, I've heard so many of them now, guys whispering, and I get it. You don't want to bust the animals out of there, and you don't know how far that bull ran when you spooked them, and you don't know how close you are. So the whispering side, you know, kind of gets old a little bit. But, you know, as far as coaching guys through that, I mean, I'm sure I said it to Steve before when we were doing it. I've bugged him a million times and just said, you know, hey, it's got to be shorter and concise. I was like, short and concise, you know, you just keep telling them, and sometimes they'll have to regurgitate it a couple of times, which, you know, you just got to be careful. Like the more you don't want to come across as fake. And like, that's been huge in the things that I've filmed. And I know that's huge with Steve is we don't do a whole lot of fake. There's no fake, and we'd rather just keep it raw and real. And so if a guy gets all excited and starts rambling, that probably will be your best take. To make him say it again sometimes is tough. But on those, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's one thing, you know, the average guy watching just television shows doesn't realize how much, you know, on the production side goes on into making a show of, you know, just interviews and shots and stuff that are just essentially Hollywood, you know, just faked, redone, you know, just taken over and over. And, but it's obviously really hard to capture it perfect the first time, because as we mentioned, it's hunting.
Yeah. You're out in the woods, and it's happening. It's unfolding as you're telling the story. I mean, typically almost all these interviews happen, you know, minutes after, if not seconds after something goes down. So, the one thing though I do, you know, that's nice is that whoever's packing the camera needs to be kind of production minded. And I guess this is where this talk is kind of getting into kind of the guys who want to take their filming to the next level a little bit, you know, from your entry level stuff. But, you know, it's got to be kind of production minded. So whoever's kind of running the camera, you know, have what you want to accomplish in mind, you know. So if you want to stay real and raw, that's fine. I mean, your guy can kind of ramble. Just understand that when you get back to editing it, you're going to have a chore. It's going to be a chore because no one really likes to listen to a guy. No one's excited. It's not as exciting to watch it on camera as it is to experience it. Yeah. So, you know, I've been there, you know, me and Steve shoot a bull, you know, and it's crazy excited. And, you know, my story sounds really exciting to me while I'm telling it to him with the camera, you know, cause I just lived it, you know. But when you get back home, you put it in front of the computer, it's like, holy smokes, I just talked for like 4 minutes trying to tell this every little detail of how the bull came in. And really, you know, unless you had every single detail in the footage shot, you got nothing to show for it, you know, and it gets old real quick. Like, it's hard for the viewer to experience every little detail that you saw, you know, as the bull came in an interview setting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good stuff for sure.
As John was talking about just tips, one thing that he taught me really well is just lighting, how critical that is. You know, and for me, it's, if we're filming or even taking photos, you know, early in the morning, late in the evening, and then anytime it's cloudy, you know, even your photos, the video, everything's going to be so much better when you're under those conditions versus high noon and it's sunny outside trying to take photos. They're just never going to look that good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super true. Lighting is huge. Yeah, I mean, if you want to improve something about your videos, filming in direct sunlight is always going to look bad. It's just always going to be tough. There's going to be harsh shadows on everything. So yeah, I mean, if you're ever going to, that's actually one really good tip. So if you're going to film interviews or you want to do like some detail stuff, for your hunting stuff, you know, like you need to put people in shadows. Like put them in the shadow of a tree before you film an interview, you know, midday with the sun, you know, blaring down on you. Put them in a shadow or something like that so you don't have this, you know, real harsh shadows on their face, or the camera's not trying to auto expose itself to try to figure out if it's supposed to expose for the sun or if it's supposed to expose for your face. So, you know, that's one really good tip as well, actually.
Yeah. That is good. I mean, is there anything you can, besides on the interview topic specifically, if you're in a situation where you know, again, on a hunt, like that could be when the action that you run into is there anything else you can do to help, you know, make that midday sun look better? Any sort of filters, anything post-production you can do, or it's just not ideal?
Yeah, I mean, you can put polarizing filters on. It's just like one more piece of gear to like have to worry about. And in the backcountry, like dust gets on everything. So when you put filters on, I mean, yeah, I'll run like a clear UV filter, but it just like you get dust. Dust always seems to be able to get in between the filter and your lens. It's just constantly. So I don't use a UV filter a whole lot. I usually just try, if I'm going to do that kind of stuff, I just try to put the person I'm interviewing like in the shade. I try to compose them, or, you know, if I can, a lot of times if it depends on where the sun's at, I love doing sun flares. So letting the sun flare really cool is basically putting the sun right behind the speaker's head. You know, if you put that sun literally, if you can put the camera right in front of their face and have that sun be directly behind their head, it'll give a cool kind of halo flare look, which is really cool. That's a real popular kind of cinematic shot. But with interview shots, one other thing too with interview shots is don't be afraid to go like tight, like wide, medium, tight. Like you need to use like all those different, you know, frame sizes, you know, when you're framing your shots. A lot of times with interviews, you know, some guys will be like way too wide, you know, when, you know, if a hunter just missed a bull of a lifetime, like get that camera all up in his face, you know, nice and close. Like you want to feel his emotion when you're way back, super far away from him. Like you just can't feel that emotion. It's just not as easy. So that's the other thing that's really huge is use, you know, if you don't have a zoom on your camera, then move forward, you know, move closer or move back and change the angle, you know, how close and how far away you are. Don't film from the exact same angle. You know, if you have a camera that doesn't zoom per se, like if you're filming with your cell phone, move up, get up close and in someone's face, you know, and then, you know, you can get your back shots to kind of show the whole setting. But a lot of times with interviews, guys, I don't think they get close enough, and you need to be kind of closer because it gives you that personal feel, and you can kind of you can see the details of what's going on in the hunter's face and, his frustrations, you know, or his excitement. Mm-hmm. And, that's actually been something that took me a while to learn. And once I kind of figured that out, it really, really helped with the emotion of the films. Yeah,
that makes a ton of sense. Just that point where the viewer gets to feel the emotion and really read the face because you have that tighter shot. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So sorry.
No, go ahead.
One more thing on that as well, like keep the camera rolling. And this is something that I am terrible at. I am like so, you know, in and out of cuts that I just want to hit the record button to start, hit it to get out. And I've missed so many cool opportunities, you know, that may have happened. Something funny happened like right after I hit stopped recording, or, you know, a lot of times that's what it has to do with, but keep that camera rolling. You hit the record button, you know, and he shoots over his back, misses the bull. Make sure you don't hit that record button and turn it off and then, you know, then hit it again to shoot the interview. Like let that camera run. Like if you need to make sure you got lots of memory cards, whatever you got to do, but keep that camera rolling, as much as possible. Cause a lot of times the best stuff happens when the camera's not even on. And I've missed tons of really funny shots, you know, a lot of times it's humorous stuff. And just because I turned the camera off, you know, prematurely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. So I guess let's go ahead now and transition, talk a bit about gear. I know that this could be several episodes on its own when we start talking about gear.
Gosh.
So let's start with this. What do you carry? And this is, again, even just a big question. What do you carry? And then what things have you learned that you don't need to carry? So again, with video, it's like you even mentioned, you always want like this accessory, that thing. But at the same time, you're always balancing. I got to keep up with Steve. I got to keep up with Corey. I have to go up the mountain. So certainly in terms of backcountry hunting and filming, you have to limit yourself. So what have you found to be, I guess let's start with that. What have you found to be non-essentials or things that gradually phased out of your gear setup? That you maybe used to use?
You know, I pay a little more attention, and a lot of this kind of stuff is kind of funny because I kind of learned from Steve, because Steve's this ultralight minimalist guy, you know, and you actually can apply that to your camera gear. It kind of depends on what you're doing. Like a lot of my stuff that I'm filming on most of my hunts, is all self-film stuff, or I'm just going along with one other buddy who doesn't even care about the camera too much. Like, and we're just kind of filming for fun. But one thing I've learned is like batteries. Like I kind of plan my batteries. I know how long my camera batteries will last. And if I'm just doing an overnighter, bivvy hunt, I may only take, I've got like 6 batteries I could bring, but I've learned to really just, be realistic about it and know that, the batteries will die, a little quicker in the morning during the cold weather, when it's colder, but I only need like 3 batteries, to make it 2 days or something like that, depending on how much I think I'm going to be filming. So, and those little batteries, those weight adds up quick with batteries. They can be pretty heavy.
Yeah.
So batteries is like one thing. I think the biggest battle for me is always audio gear. And audio gear is always just so awkward. And I used to put a big shotgun mic on and if I'll say this, if I'm like filming for a real legit project, I'm going to make sure I'm packing, wireless mics and all this kind of stuff. Extra audio gear to make sure the audio is good. But when I'm hunting by myself and I'm just doing, self-production stuff or, maybe like little YouTube videos and stuff showing off my hunts, also I pack for audio gear now is like a long wired lapel mic. And that's probably been like my thing I've loved the most. Like I've got a couple little, homemade my own hunt videos that I've done. And I just packed this. It's like a 25 or a 20-foot long cable. And it's a long wired lapel mic that'll go and plug into your camera. And it's really good for if you're hunting by yourself and, you actually knock something down, you can kind of do a cool little talk, behind the animal and still have good audio going into the camera. That's one thing that I've kind of learned. But that being said, like audio is like always my nemesis. Like it's always the one, like shotgun mics are awkward to carry. You can ask Steve this, like he even, he's got some little tiny shotgun mics, they're always trying to get good audio and the audio is always the awkward stepchild. That's like such a pain that you have to take, and it's always the one thing that I'm always like, well, do I leave it or do I bring it? And then the one thing so that's the reason why I got that, that wired lapel is it's crazy ultra light. It's small. And if I need to, and I'm in a pinch, I can wire that thing up and I've got good audio.
Yeah.
Yeah. Audio is definitely your biggest nemesis in filming a hunt. Just, there's nothing worse than, no windscreen on your mic and you just, all you hear is wind noise and it's choppy. And, we definitely learned that from John but it's tough. Wireless mics are a pain in the ass, if you always have it in your back pocket and got a mic you're worried about, and it's just a pain.
Yeah. You guys still run like the smaller shotgun style mics, Steve? Just on top of the camera?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Little Sennheiser 400 MKE or whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So with your wired lapel, is that your primary mic in terms of even when you're not doing like direct interviews and things like that, but just to pick up the environmental audio? Is that what you pretty much leave running the whole time, John?
It's pretty much just kind of on board mic. I do have a little shotgun mic as well. If I'm really worried about picking up, the sounds of the woods and that kind of stuff, to be honest with you, like when you're out in the woods, like, I mean, there's always wind noise and stuff going on. So I've kind of learned that the onboard mic, built-in mic on your camera, a lot of times will suffice for that kind of stuff. Birds chirping, wind noise. It's already kind of noisy anyways out. It's never dead silent. I don't hardly ever get in the woods when it's just dead silent. Once you actually get out there and you sit down and slow down, there's lots of noise going on, especially, wind and that kind of stuff. But, yeah, I mean, any interview kind of stuff, I would, slap that wired mic on real quick. Cause it just gets a mic closer to the person speaking. And that's where the big problem is when you're filming with a camera that's got a built-in microphone. You're trying to step back away from them like 6 feet, to film them talking, and just moving back that 6 feet just allows so much more of the ambient noise to kind of flood into the audio. And, we've seen this a million times. I've edited a lot of their stuff, and there's sometimes they have a shotgun mic on and it sounds okay. And then there's sometimes when they don't have the shotgun mic on for like a quick interview, and you can just tell you got to clean up a lot of noise. a lot of audio noise in the background. So the audio thing is, like Steve said, it's always a wrestling match. It's just,
you video guy, like, it's fun. I have friends who, not even in the hunting industry, that do a ton of video stuff. And I mean, every video film guy I've ever talked to just complains about audio. Like, that's just like the default.
Because you just want to shoot. You just want to shoot, and you just want to shoot, and you want to have fun shooting, and audio, and you just want the audio to be perfect all the time.
Right.
But unless you have a guy almost like designated to the audio, it's just never going to be what you wanted it to be. You're always going to get back to the editing room and be like, oh my gosh, why didn't I take time to do this? And that's all for like production stuff. Like, the average guy wants to put his hunt on YouTube. Like, someone may complain, someone may troll the video and complain about your audio, but, no one's really going to care too much. I see lots of YouTube videos that are really fun to watch that don't have perfect audio, and you can tell the guy, maybe filmed with a cell phone or, something like that. And so, it all depends on what you're doing. If you're getting paid, or if you're going to start developing like you want to put something together for a TV show, then you have to do audio, and you're going to have to deal with that, being a pain. And audio is huge. Like, I'll say this too, real quick about the Wyoming hunt and in audio. Like, I used Corey's camera because he had a legit XLR, which is a professional audio plug-in, and a good shotgun mic, like a real high-end shotgun mic. And I really wanted to capture the bugles, Corey gets those bulls fired up and gets them talking. And so it was really cool. There was different settings on the shotgun mic, which allowed me to, I could flip the switch one way, and I could pick up the audio of the bull, bugling from, 300 yards away, real crystal clear. And I could just, with the flip of a switch, flip back to being right next to Corey and having normal sound audio. Cause, it's always a battle. So if you're going to be doing production stuff, like, you're going to have to think about that kind of stuff, and you're going to have to, take your audio to the next level, and you're going to have to drag that extra audio equipment out into the field. There's just no way around it. Like, there's no simple solution to the audio issue, especially out in the woods.
Yeah. Cool. So just again on that idea of streamlining things, I think this is one of those topics that, we probably have listeners who are wanting to up the game, whether it's, again, for their own personal enjoyment, or maybe they want to start sharing stuff on YouTube. They want to get more into the video aspects of their hunts. And like any other, I think, hobby or interest, one of the first things guys especially do when they get into something is just flat out drop money on stuff, right? So what are some of those things that you see guys maybe dropping money on or buying, or, adding to their rig? Maybe that's what you did too, that you now look back and say, that probably wasn't necessary. Is there anything else that comes to mind? I'm a fairly kind of thrifty guy. You can ask Steve. I'm a kind of a low budget kind of thrifty guy. So, I've owned nice cameras. But a lot of times I'm fairly practical when it comes to my camera gear. So I haven't bought a lot of stuff that I look back and was like, well, that was a dumb purchase. Yeah. Well, good for you then.
I like to sit there and kind of pay attention to what's going on and see if I think I actually would need that if I went into the field.
Yeah.
So to be honest with you, like, I don't know, like.
No, I think that's good. That's a good answer. So let's just flip it then and say, what does your setup look like? Because that's the other end to the question really, is being a thrifty guy, being a guy that does his research, being a guy that wants to have the essentials. All right. What is that? So what does your gear setup look like? And again, I know that varies based on, the project or whether you're shooting for yourself, but what's kind of your go-to, and maybe some of the good recommendations for somebody who, wants to get beyond a basic point and shoot, wants to get beyond using their phone, and then isn't doing, full production style stuff yet? What's that good sort of in-between range?
Yeah, as far as, what I pack, I really enjoy the filmmaking side, so I'm not just out there to film hunts that, is going to look like it came through a camcorder. So, and I've talked with Steve quite a bit. We talk about having like a kill shot camera, and then I talk about having like a cinematic camera. So cinematic camera most of the time is like a DSLR for me. I want a shallow depth of field, kind of film look camera. So a lot of times, like I'll pack a DSLR of some sort. I've had a couple different ones over the years. And like you said, like it depends heavily on what you're doing. Like 3-day bivvy hunt, man, there's some serious questions over what you're bringing, and what you're leaving. Whereas like a day hunt or like an overnighter hunt, you can kind of bring the whole kitchen sink with you and bring all the gear and gadgets and camera you want, because it's not a big deal. It's just paying for a day. But, so the cinematic camera, typically for me is a DSLR with some sort of decent lens that's going to give me the shallow depth of field. It's also going to give me really good low light performance, which like Steve, touched on earlier. Low light's huge. Like, some of the funnest stuff happens, in hunting and actually out in the woods. You see the coolest stuff typically right before sundown and right at sun, right just after sunrise. So that low light capabilities, the DSLR with a decent lens on it is going to give you the low light capabilities for the early morning, waking up, getting out of the tent, pumping water in the dark, all that kind of stuff. And then like I touched on, your kill shot camera, there's a lot. I mean, this all comes down to like audio again. So kill shot camera, I've used a lot of different cameras, probably the easiest, like right out of the gate for guys is a camcorder. Like, Steve actually turned me on to this like little Canon Vixia HSF 200 or something like that. It was a real small camcorder. But it was solid. Like it was a really good camcorder. And I don't like the look of camcorders for like my whole project, but if I need to capture a kill or I need to get a quick shot, like I'm going to choose that over the DSLR because obviously the DSLR is going to be a lot of manual operations. So we say kill shot camera. I mean, a kill shot camera could be a point and shoot camera. You basically just want a camera that has like autofocus and has a good zoom. And whether that's a point and shoot, I mean, the point and shoots have come a long ways now. I mean, there are some high quality point and shoots. Even the camcorders have come a long way. Just know that with those things, they have a smaller image sensor, which is going to give you, a lot worse. It's going to be it's not going to perform as well in low light. It's going to be really grainy. As soon as things are dark, which unfortunately a lot of your kill shots are going to be, early morning, late evening kind of stuff. So the camcorder and the point and shoot will struggle there a little bit, but they're getting better. Like technology is getting better all the time. So those little $500-$600 camcorders are excellent. They're not going to give you that cinematic look, but if you want to, be able to capture kind of everything, those little camcorders are hard to beat. So those, I'm basically packing like a kill shot, what I call a kill shot camera, and I'm packing a cinematic style camera. And then I really love GoPros, like, any sort of action POV camera. I just love them, whether you use them for a kill shot, it drives everyone nuts because it makes the elk look like he's, 400 yards away.
Makes the shooter look like a hero though. Like it was 10-yard shot and it looks like it was 80.
Yeah. Yeah. But the thing that's cool about that is if you actually do turn it on, it's cool because as a viewer, you get to see like everything that was going on with that hunter. You get to see like the moves he was making, where he was looking, you get to see all this kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of a wacky wide angle kind of deal, but I've seen Steve and Jason, do some really cool things with the GoPro. It's just like you can put the camera anywhere. Those little tiny cameras, you can stick them anywhere. You can throw them in the water, the mud, and it's just always an extra little angle. That's a real wide angle that it just gives a great perspective on like what was going on, in that situation that maybe the camera that's zoomed in on the elk doesn't see. So those are kind of the three cameras I will almost always pack. Every time I go out, I'll pack my kill shot camera a lot of times is a point and shoot, a little Sony HX9 20V that I got a long time ago. And this is when I'm trying to stay fairly not ultralight, but I'm trying to stay fairly lightweight. Then I'll pack a DSLR and then I'll pack a GoPro. And that's kind of my three cameras. I have trouble leaving any one of those three at home. I just always have to bring one. I do have a camcorder. If I want to capture a little better audio, I'll bring the camcorder and leave the point and shoot at home. So that's kind of the camera camera setup and kind of the philosophy behind that we've kind of developed over the years. And a lot of that came from Steve, really.
One thing I want to touch on real quick is like GoPro. I get a lot of emails from guys like, oh, I want to get a GoPro to film my hunts. And then my first reaction is, no, you don't. Get a little, a $300 camcorder, because guys, see the popularity of GoPros. But as John mentioned, they're really just special angles. We'll put them on the ground. We'll attach them to the end of our bow or antlers packing out or something like that. But as far as if you want to film a hunt, I think, like I said, John was saying the point and shoots, some of those little, and a point and shoot is just a small photo camera that they start shooting really good video, or just a little camcorder. So.
Yeah. If you rely on your GoPro as your only camera, yeah, you're going to be pretty disappointed because one, you're never going to be able to see the animals. And that's like, it's just got kind of the frustrating side of it is, and the kind of the side you give up if you're using a GoPro is, the animals just look too far away. You can't film elk 100 yards away with a GoPro. And you're going to be in your mind thinking, man, it was so cool. I watched two bulls spar on this hillside and they were only 100 yards away. It was like awesome. And if you only have a GoPro, you're going to be seriously bummed because that memory when you get back home is not going to be, you won't even be able to see. You'll see like two tan blobs moving. And, so Steve's absolutely right. And that's where I call like the kill camera or the camera that has a zoom, your camcorder or your point and shoot, whatever. It needs to have a decent zoom because those are the memories and things that are really cool. I mean, if you jump a bull and, it's like a 370 bull, and he's, you don't have a chance, at getting him. He's already, winded you or whatever, and he's running up this hillside and he's just a heck of a bull. If you got a GoPro, all you got is your, mental image of what he was, but if you've got a point and shoot or a little camcorder, you can zoom in on him and at least you get it. I mean, it sucks going home with, or blowing around a bull that big, but at least you got the memory of it and you could show your buddies like, holy smokes, I went in this area and got into this bull. He was a stud, at least you can show people that. And it's all about being able to share your memories with people. And so, yeah, I mean, you got to be careful. You can't I would never go out in the field with just a GoPro.
One thing, John, I think it'd be good for you to talk about here is just another email I get of guys, they're on Facebook or social media or whatever, and they're wanting to kind of A, take better photos, or B, start filming their hunts, but really for personal use. And they throw a question out on Facebook, like, what camera should I need? And really they're getting the full gamut of responses from, oh, you absolutely need this freaking Canon, the S10 or whatever, and it's a $1,300 camera. And I'm just like, I got to back them down. Like, man, if you're just doing this for personal use or YouTube, there's a lot of great, $300, $400, $500 cameras that are going to do an awesome job. So can you maybe name some models or kind of give some examples there?
Oh, I was hoping you were going to say models. Because I was just like, I mean, it kind of depends. We're always playing with different gear. I mean, you got that, your cool little neater skeeter. I mean, here's one thing I will say. Like, if guys want to start packing a camera on their hunt, like, this is huge. Probably the most important thing is you need to have a camera that you can access very quickly and easily, because if it's too big to like put on your hip or, in a side pouch or something, you're never going to get it out. Like, I think that's one thing we've learned, really well, especially backcountry hunting, is unless that camera's like on your hip or easy to carry, in your hand, small in size, fairly compact, you're never going to get it out. Because you're going to throw it up in the lid of your pack, and then when something goes down, you're not going to have time to get your pack off to, get the camera out. And so size is huge. There's no point in packing a camera if you're not going to get it out and use it. So that's the reason why, like, point and shoots, like, I'm huge. If guys are getting into filming, I'm like, man, grab a point and shoot. The audio is going to be, pretty mediocre, but a lot of those point and shoots will have a decent zoom. So if you see a really cool animal or a bear or something like that, or you want to film something, you can have a point and shoot out of your pocket. I mean, a lot of times I remember watching Steve, he packs a point and shoot, carries it in his pocket most of the time or in his little hip side pouch, and he can get it out anytime he wants. Whereas, you start packing like a bigger camcorder or, even DSLRs, DSLRs are really awkward to carry. They're really cool. And I'm a huge fan of DSLRs, but I don't tell anyone just starting to get into filming to grab a DSLR, because it would be pointless. Like they'll never get it out. It's so awkward to use. And, so, you know, having it small, you know, and compact and easy to, you know, access, you know, basically put it where you can just reach down and grab it, you know, whatever that camera is. You know, there's lots of point and shoot. Sony makes really good point and shoot cameras. You know, I think a guy could spend, you know, in the neighborhood of like $300 to $500 on a small camcorder or point and shoot, and be happy with the quality, like very, very happy with the quality, you know, as far as, you know, using it for like personal use and starting to capture your hunts. So budget wise, I mean, budget wise is fine, but like size is huge. Size is what kills guys. I mean, don't pack a DSLR, you know, for your only camera. You know, basically just what I said is it's not going to be easy to use. And it's going to end up in your pack most of the time, because anytime you got to hike down and through a nasty draw and up the other side, up this real steep ridge, the camera's going to go up in your pack, and you're not going to have it when you jump that, you know, that buck up or something like that, you know, and you'll totally miss the shot. So size is huge. You know, I don't necessarily have any models, you know, a lot of, you know, Canon, Sony, all those guys make great camcorders. And everyone's making a pretty darn good point and shoot camera these days as well. So one recommendation there is, you know, try to find something that's got like at least a 15 power zoom. I would say a 20 power zoom. Just because it seems more often than not, you know, you want that zoom and that image stabilization, you know, so you can, you know, film animals that are, you know, a couple 100 yards away.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, I'm not a film guy by any means, but, you know, I did the same thing in terms of picking up a point and shoot in that range with like I think mine is a 18 or 20 times, optical zoom. And, you know, it's one of those things I can keep it in my side hip belt pouch, which is what I normally do, and it's just so easy to get out, get pictures, put it back. And I just enjoy having all the memories personally in my hunts, and then the zoom in terms of shooting animals has been super helpful. So yeah, for like, I think I probably spent like $350 in that range. And you know, again, I'm not trying to make a TV show, but you can get some really, really quality pictures, and it does shoot HD video as well. So I think it's a good recommendation for sure.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
Hey, one thing, John, you'd mentioned shallow depth of field. Can a lot of guys that might go over their head a little bit? Can you explain just what that is?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So the reason why everyone started packing DSLRs, and the reason why there was this huge DSLR revolution when it came to video, you see all these guys running around with photo cameras and they are telling you they're shooting video, is basically due to a couple of things. I'm not going to get into like the technical side of it. Basically, they allow you to shoot shallow depth of field, and what shallow depth of field means is like the focus is really shallow. It blurs the background. So, you know, if I'm on, a lot of times when you film with camcorders, if you're filming, you know, someone like the hunter standing there, he's in focus. And then also the trees behind him and the mountain behind him, they're all in focus. And it's just a really flat looking shot. There's not a whole lot of depth to it. Everything's in focus. It's kind of like a GoPro angle. But, you know, with DSLRs and mainly it's just with DSLRs, they can achieve a really shallow depth of field. And that just means that, like, you know, you can have like the hunter's eyes in focus, and then the back of his head is out of focus, and everything behind him is blurry and out of focus as well. It's just a real cinematic look. You know, it's used in the movies like crazy. And recently in the hunting industry, you know, it's everywhere now. Everyone, you know, is packing a DSLR of some sort to achieve, of some degree to achieve their, you know, shallow depth of field cinematic look.
Yeah, one thing I think I realized when I first started learning about it was really that's how your human eye sees. You know, if you look at something at, you know, at the tip of your fingers, and then something, you know, 5 feet past that, the tip of your fingers go out of focus, and that thing goes into focus, and it's just a much more realistic view. Yes. And so that the subject just comes to life.
Yeah, exactly. It really helps things jump off. Whatever you're focused on becomes very central to the viewer. Like, it's just what you focus on. And there's not all these distractions going on, you know, of all the items behind it that are, you know, that are like in focus. Like when you shoot with like a camcorder, like a little camcorder or something like that, and everything's in focus. It's just very distracting because you can see the mountain behind the guy, you know, and it's in focus as well. Whereas when that's out of focus and the hunter is the only thing in focus, he becomes the focal point of your eye, you know. And it looks very, very good. And like Steve said, it feels natural to look at that.
Awesome. This has been a ton of solid info. I'm sure that there's a lot more we could cover. I might have to have you back if we get some feedback from the guys who are saying, I want more, I want to go deeper, we'll learn more. So, John, thank you so much for your time and for being willing to come on with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. We really do love having you along on this journey with us. Hope you learned something. Be sure to tune back next week. We'll have another great episode for you.